The night was quiet, the suburban streets illuminated by the dim glow of streetlights. Jack, in his late 30s, arrived home earlier than expected, his footsteps soft as he entered the familiar space of the house. There was an eerie stillness that felt different tonight, a subtle wrongness in the air that made him pause at the door. His eyes darted around the living room, where shadows cast long and silent outlines against the walls. He shrugged off his coat, the sound of the fabric sliding off his shoulders, the only noise. As he climbed the stairs, he heard faint laughter, Amy's laughter, but there was another voice, lower, unfamiliar, mingling with hers. Jack's heart sank, dread pooling in his stomach as his suspicions ignited. He stood at the bottom of the staircase for a moment, his breath catching in his throat. Something was terribly wrong. He had to know. He had to confront it. Each step toward the bedroom felt heavier than the last, as if Jack were walking into a nightmare. He could hear the muffled voices more clearly now, Amy's playful giggle intertwined with a man's quiet whispers. His mind raced, replaying every moment of their marriage, years of shared joy, hardships, and love that now felt distant and fragile. The hallway was lined with photos from their wedding, family vacations, anniversaries, snapshots of a life he thought was secure. But each picture now felt like a lie, a painful reminder of a life that seemed to be crumbling right before his eyes. Jack hesitated in front of the bedroom door, his hand hovering over the doorknob, unsure if he could handle the truth that awaited him. His knuckles were white from gripping the door frame, his pulse pounding in his ears. Swallowing hard, he pushed the door open. The sight before him, confirming his worst fear, the bedroom, softly lit by the bedside lamp, was a scene Jack could never have prepared himself for. Amy, his wife of 10 years, sat on the edge of the bed, laughing softly with Mark, a man Jack recognized from casual encounters at social gatherings, never suspecting him to be anything more than an acquaintance. At the sight of Jack standing in the doorway, Amy's smile vanished, her face draining of color as she realized she'd been caught. Mark quickly stood, fumbling for words as guilt and panic washed over him. "Jack, I can explain," Mark started, but Jack's cold, piercing gaze cut him off before he could say anything further. "It's exactly what it looks like," Jack said, his voice calm but edged with a simmering fury. The tension in the room was unbearable, the air thick with unspoken words. Mark glanced at Amy, unsure of what to do, and Jack's icy voice sliced through the silence again. "Get out." Mark, avoiding Jack's gaze, quickly grabbed his jacket and hurried out of the room without another word. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud, leaving Jack and Amy alone in the crushing silence of the bedroom. Amy stood there, her eyes wide with fear and guilt, her lips trembling as she tried to find something to say. But Jack's eyes bore into her, filled with a mixture of betrayal, heartbreak, and disgust. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, but heavy with emotion. Amy's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her silence spoke volumes. Tears welled in her eyes as she crumbled under the weight of her guilt. "I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't mean for this to happen," she sobbed, her voice breaking. Jack paced the room, hands on his head, as if trying to keep himself from exploding. "Didn't mean for it to happen. You made a choice, Amy." His voice rose with anger. "You destroyed everything." Amy collapsed to the floor, her sobs filling the room, pleading for forgiveness. "Jack, please, I love you. I made a mistake. We can fix this. We can get through it, please," she begged, her voice trembling. But Jack couldn't look at her. The woman he thought he knew, the life they had built together, felt like a distant memory now, shattered by her betrayal. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the door, his back turned to her as she cried. His heart was breaking, but he knew there was no coming back from this. "It's too late, Amy," he said quietly, his voice void of the warmth it once held for her. He walked toward the door, gripping the doorknob tightly, as if holding on to the last thread of sanity. "I thought I knew you," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Without looking back, Jack opened the door and stepped out into the cold night, leaving Amy behind. Jack pulled into the driveway later than usual, his workday stretching into the evening. The cool night air brushed against his face as he stepped out of the car, but there was something else, something that felt off. The house, normally filled with warmth and comfort, now seemed distant and cold. He noticed the faint glow from the upstairs bedroom, the only light on in the otherwise dark house. It was strange. Amy, his wife, was always particular about turning off the lights before bed. He glanced at his watch. It wasn't that late, but it was odd for Amy to still be awake. As he quietly entered the house, slipping off his shoes, the sound of muffled voices reached him. He stood in the living room, frozen. There was laughter, Amy's laugh, the sound he had fallen in love with. But there was another voice, deeper, unfamiliar. Jack's heart began to race. He stepped toward the staircase, his stomach knotting with unease. Could it be? No, it couldn't. Not Amy. His mind wrestled with his instincts, but his feet kept moving, drawn toward the sound of his wife's laughter, mingling with that of another man. He had to see for himself. Each step up the staircase felt like a march toward something inevitable, something Jack didn't want to believe. His heart pounded in his chest as the voices grew clearer, the laughter more distinct. Amy's bedroom door was slightly ajar, the faint light spilling into the hallway. As Jack moved closer, he could hear her, speaking in a soft, playful tone. "You're terrible," she giggled, her voice filled with a warmth that twisted the knife in Jack's chest. His mind raced, struggling to make sense of what was happening. This was the woman he had shared his life with for over a decade, the woman who had been his partner in everything, the mother of their children. But now, standing just a few feet away, Jack's world began to unravel. He stopped outside the door, his hand trembling as he reached for the knob. His eyes flicked to the photos on the wall, pictures from their wedding day, family vacations, moments that now felt like part of a distant, forgotten life. His mind screamed at him to walk away, to leave before the truth hit him. But his body betrayed him. He pushed the door open, and there it was, the scene that would change everything. The bedroom was dimly lit, the soft glow from the lamp casting long shadows across the room. Jack stood in the doorway, frozen, as his eyes took in the sight of Amy sitting on the bed with Mark, a man Jack vaguely recognized from work events. Amy's face was flushed with laughter, her hand resting on Mark's arm. When they noticed Jack, the laughter died instantly, replaced by an awkward, deafening silence. Amy's eyes widened in horror, and Mark scrambled to his feet, looking like a deer caught in headlights. "Jack," Amy's voice was a whisper, barely audible, as though she was struggling to find words. Mark, clearly panicking, stammered, Jack, listen, this isn't." Jack raised his hand, his face cold, his voice deadly calm. "Don't." Mark stopped, his mouth still open, but no words came out. Jack's gaze shifted to Amy, his eyes hard and unyielding. "How long?" His question hung in the air like a blade, cutting through the silence. Amy opened her mouth, but couldn't speak. Her face was pale, her guilt written all over her. "How long?" Jack repeated, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. Amy's eyes filled with tears. "Jack, But Jack wasn't listening anymore. His world had already collapsed. Mark, unable to handle the weight of Jack's gaze, quickly grabbed his jacket and backed out of the room, mumbling a quick, "I'm sorry," as he stumbled out the door. The sound of the door closing behind him echoed through the room, leaving Jack and Amy alone. Amy stood there, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling, as she realized the magnitude of what she had done. "Jack, please," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you. Please, we can fix this." But Jack's face remained impassive, his heart numb to her pleas. He couldn't even look at her without feeling a surge of anger and pain. His voice, when he finally spoke, was cold. "You didn't mean for it to happen. You made a choice, Amy." His words cut through the air like ice, and Amy flinched as if she had been struck. She fell to her knees, sobbing. I was weak. I don't know why I did it, but I swear it didn't mean anything. Please, Jack, I love you. I can't lose you." Jack stared at her, his heart a storm of emotions. But all he could feel now was the betrayal. The life they had built together, the trust they had shared, it was all gone. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on him. He turned away from Amy, unable to bear the sight of her, sobbing on the floor. For a moment, he closed his eyes, trying to remember the woman he once knew, the life they had before everything shattered. But all he could see now was the betrayal, the image of her with another man etched into his mind. He opened his eyes and looked toward the door, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's too late, Amy," she gasped, her hands reaching out toward him. But he stepped away, moving toward the door. "We can't fix this. You made your choice." His voice, though quiet, was filled with finality. Amy's sobs grew louder as she realized the full extent of what she had lost. "Jack, please, I'm begging you, don't leave. We